Sorry, muted. To start, should I start again? I think it would be better because. Sorry. Yeah. Vice President Mihir Bhai Sheth, Honorary Secretary Chirag Doshi, Speaker for the session CA Gandharv Tongia. Is it audible now? Is it audible? Okay. A very good evening to all, assembled virtually as well as physically. We as Chartered Accountants have been serving clients in ensuring accurate accounting and carrying out statutory and internal audits. The skill sets which are majorly required for such assignments are knowledge of business processes, accounting and auditing standards, corporate laws and tax laws. These skill sets definitely equip us to know the operations of the business at macro level. While carrying out audit, assignment, and inquisitive auditor with an intent to understand the nuances of the business would delve deep into the transactions, processes, contracts, logistics, marketing, and other aspects of the operations. Then there may be comparisons with financials of competitors to benchmark the financials of the auditee. By carrying out such an in-depth functions, an astute auditor would be in a position to add value to his own knowledge as well as provide qualitative inputs to the auditee for improving the operations based on vast pool of clients with whom there are assignments for audit and other professional areas. In recent times, business complexities have increased tremendously due to accelerating shift towards online transactions, digital payments, and complex structuring. It is a necessity for the professionals to be equipped with the knowledge of how the business are operating, whether he is an auditor or representing the corporate entity in various roles up to the level of CFO or CEO. To be successful on either side, as a professional, there are certain skill sets which have to be consciously developed over years. In light of this thought process, we thought it fit to invite today's speaker, CA Gandharv Tongia, to delve into the qualities which he developed over the years while making shift from being an able auditor to taking up assignments in industry and climbing up the ladder in industry to be the CFO at one of the prominent fast-moving electrical goods company, Polycab Limited. He has several accolades to his credit, which would be highlighted when he is officially introduced to the participants today. We are sure this lecture will enable the participants present to take home the learnings and will inspire them to take on more responsibilities as CA professionals, thereby adding value to their clients and be looked upon as business advisors. This in turn will provide them cutting-edge knowledge to compete in the professional world. I take this opportunity where more than, I think 70 odd participants have joined, 100 odd participants have joined virtually, and a limited number which are present physically over here, to briefly provide glimpses of the activities that BCS undertakes for the benefit of those who may not be part of our BCS family. In fact, it is heartening to inform that today's speaker is also part of the BCS core group and contributes to the progress of the society. BCS is the oldest voluntary body of chartered accountants and will be entering the 74th year by the end of fortnight from today. BCS strives to disseminate knowledge to members, build their skill sets, and to provide a networking platform to like-minded professionals. It also acts as a catalyst by representing to the government bodies for bringing out better and effective government policies. I earnestly request non-member CA professionals to become BCS members so that you all enjoy the benefits of excelling as professionals. This will be achieved through gaining of in-depth knowledge from attending workshops, seminars, and residential courses, which are organized throughout the year. You will also have access to the BCA journal, a gateway to insights on topics of professional interest and considered as one of the best professional journals for chartered accountants. This membership and involvement in the activities of BCS will also incline you to give back to the society through your sharing of knowledge. I thank you all and have an insightful session. I now request President-elect Mihir Bhai Sheth to introduce CA Gandharv Tongia. Thank you.
Good evening to all of you. First, let me apologize for having a little technical glitch, but I can assure you that we are only getting better because we are in the process of making a shift from a physical mode to a hybrid mode. And these are all the hiccups which are, as would happen, initial hiccups. So it could only get better from there. So my apologies to all the viewers and also to the speaker. Let me have this pleasant task of introducing today's speaker. Gandharv Tongia is not a new name to BCS. I'm quite sure many of you have heard he has been a frequent speaker on this platform and has given some very insightful talks and has participated in discussions over the last few years. He's a fellow member of ICAI with over 20 years of experience. He's also a company secretary and a BCom from the University of Rajasthan. He's a CFO of Polycab Limited and he's instrumental in getting Polycab listed. He has transformed the organization by preparing a strategy for future and also executed the same. He has won several awards such as the Best CFO of India Midcap by Dalal Street Investment Journal and CFO Excellence Award by CII. Gandharv earlier worked for Indian member firms of EY and Deloitte and provided assurance and consultancy services to varied nature of businesses in India and overseas. He has also worked on a range of assignments with expertise in financial statement auditing, accounting and reporting, financial due diligence, internal control, reporting and accounting advisory matters. He has also significant experience of capital market transactions, including IPO, QIP, and bond offerings. Gandharv has participated in learning and development initiatives. He regularly participates as trainer and speaker in external forums. He has prepared and presented technical papers on various matters, and he's also assisted the ICAI in preparation of technical publications. He's associated with professional bodies and actively contributes to their activities, including representations to the regulators and government. He also represents the industry in various committees of such professional bodies. Now let me get to the softer side, the other side of Mr. Gandharv Tongia, which is non-academic. He is associated with an NGO and actively supports needy, particularly those who are from the bottom of social pyramid. He is truly following C.K. Prahlad's theory that the rise will happen from the bottom and he's helping his best. With this, let me hand over to, do we have a memento? Yeah. Let me request Vijay Bhai to give a memento to Gandharv. Over to you.
Make it full screen, no? You full screen.
Thank you, Abhay and Meerbhai, for the kind words and introduction. Respected VCAS, office bearers, and my friends, it's a matter of indeed pride and privilege to be here and addressing all of you physically as well as virtually. Before I get into this topic, let me take this opportunity to appreciate and acknowledge the great work which VCAS team is doing year after year. Every year I come here, I feel like this is the best year of VCAS. And then I come next time around and I realize that VCAS again raised the bar. So when we are getting into the 75th year of BCAS, I'm sure under leadership of President-elect Meerbhai, we will further raise the bar, and Meerbhai will continue to get support from all of us, including me. So thanks a lot. I had a chat with Abhay almost 9 months back, and that is when he mentioned that I should be sharing my journey of transitioning from auditor to CFO. And unfortunately, I made him chase me. But when I was thinking about this lecture this morning, I realized that this is a wonderful gift which Abhay has given, because in corporate life, at times you do not get adequate opportunity to reflect and introspect. And Abhay actually gave me this opportunity to introspect and reflect. So thanks a lot, Abhay, for this. Today's topic is not a technical topic. It is like sharing my journey, talking about my autobiography. I'm too young to talk about autobiography, but what I will do is I will give you my personal background so that you understand the choices which I made over the period, what is the background and context. Then I will talk about my journey of auditor and CFO. And then I have preempted or tabulated few likely Q&A. So I'll talk about those. And in the end, I'll probably get into the open forum. I don't know how effectively we can do it in this hybrid mode, but I'll try my level best to cover all your questions. So as Meerbhai mentioned, I did my graduation from University of Rajasthan, Jaipur. I was born and brought up in Jaipur. And I did my articleship incidentally from a tax firm. It's a very large firm, still very large in Jaipur. And when I was doing my articleship, I thought that I will become a taxational professional. In those days, and I think to a certain extent, even today also, there are limited opportunities available for chartered accountants in states like Rajasthan and Jaipur. And that was a period when the ICI started with campus placement. So few of our friends felt that we should go to Bombay and appear for campus placement. And that is how first time in my life I came here. Coincidentally, none of my friends joined us. So it was like typical Goa plan, which is very difficult to implement. And that is what happened with me. And first day of my campus placement, in those days, C Institute used to be in Cuff Parade, who are familiar with Bombay. And first day itself, during the lunch break, couple of other participants suggested that there are good CF firms around. Why don't we just go and meet these CF firms? And that is how I reached to a firm called A.F. Ferguson. I was so naive in those days that I didn't know what is A.F. Ferguson, so you can relate. I met my first mentor there. He interviewed me, couple of them interviewed me, and one of them became my mentor later. And I was hired and selected then and there and offered a position. And then I thought there's no point going back to ICAI for campus. Let's join this firm. And that is how I started my audit experience. And for next 3 years, I did audit of manufacturing companies, cement companies, steel companies, predominantly manufacturing companies, and a bit of hospitality companies, and traveled across the world, or in those days actually across the country, and learned a fair amount about corporate style of working, preparing accounts, consolidation, and whatever you can link with accounting and auditing. In the third year of my association of Ferguson, I was serving a cement client, and that client decided to change its auditor from A.F. Ferguson to S.R. Bartley, which is a member firm of EY. And the way the auditing moved, even the auditor also moved. So I also moved to EY, and I was with EY for good 12 years and did almost everything which you can associate it with a large firm, whether it's accounting, auditing, consultancy. And slowly and gradually, I was able to move up. It's so slowly and gradually, I was able to move up in the corporate ladder. I started like a typical audit preparer. The members who are from the profession, they would be able to relate. Am I audible there? Okay. And then slowly and gradually, I became a reviewer. And eventually, in my final years of EY, I was responsible for more of business management or firm-related activities, training or HR, and so on and so forth. After completing 12 years EY, there was a time when I felt that I should explore opportunities outside the profession, and that is when I decided to join this organization, which is my current employer, Polycab India Limited. As Abhay mentioned, Polycab India Limited is the largest cable and wire manufacturer in the country. And in the first year of my association with Polycab, the expectation was to get the company listed, and I was lucky enough to deliver that baby exactly in the 9th month. So I joined the organization in the month of July of 18, and in the month of March of 19, the company got listed. And then after that, of course, I contributed to the success of the organization. Where, since the time I have joined the organization, Since the time I've joined the organization revenue has doubled, the profitability has tripled, and the market cap after the listing is 4x even after today's meltdown. And of course, there are other parameters which are comparatively better. So that's a broad journey. After hearing whatever I shared, the natural question would be that what is the expectation from the CFO vis-a-vis the auditor? And with the help of this slide, I'll probably attempt to share my thoughts. In today's world, CFO is no longer a bookkeeper or accountant. In olden days, the expectation was the CFO would be only a bean counter, who will just compute the numbers, report the numbers. I don't think that is the role which is expected from current era CFO. There are different shades and activities. So for example, one would expect a CFO to be an accountant, to be a compliance manager, to a fund manager or a treasury manager, or someone who is going to manage the IR activities. But if I were to give you a framework, I think the framework is he is a chief value officer. And the way to read this or understand this is we should define the value. And then after that, we should protect the value, liberate the value, generate the value, and eventually communicate the value. Let's spend a few minutes understanding what do you mean by protect value. And what I will do is I will also give you some examples of what I did at Polycab so that I can bring some real-time case studies when we talk about this. So protect value is the basics of the CFO function, which would mean the basic controllership, basic accounting, basic bookkeeping, and reporting. That is protect value. But how you can take it to the next level is the example which I'm going to explain to you now. Polycab, before I joined, and it used to take almost 12 months to report its 12 months numbers, and frequently after taking MCA's or ROC's approval for extended period for AGM. Now, Polycab is probably one of the first in the industry of cable and wire to report the numbers. We report the numbers within 15 to 20 days. So that is a transition which Polycab has seen. And that is one example of protect value. The other example of protect value is, can you move away from the sheer compliance to delight of the stakeholder? To give you an example, under SEBI LODR, as you know, there is a requirement to publish quarterly results under Regulation 33, which is 1 page or 2 page of press release. That is an option which is available, but that would be a compliance. Whereas what Polycab chose and our team chose is we are going to publish condensed financial statement, which is Ind AS 34 or old GAAP AS 25. Now, as of today, there is no company in mid-cap which is doing it. But the choice is whether you want to do only a basic compliance or you want to act to the delight of the stakeholder or shareholder. And if you choose to do this, then that is where you are protecting value. The end result is last year, ICI gave Excellence in Financial Reporting Award to Polycab. a company which got qualified by its auditors few years back, and I was a person who was involved in the audit in those days of this entity, and as well as got a disclaimer on ICFR, has moved from that side of the table to this side of the table. So that is the example of protect value. So as a chartered accountant and as a CFO, when you are working in industry, you are expected to protect the value. But in today's world, that alone is not enough. Now the expectation is ESG, or integrated reporting. So you should not associate yourself only with the financial numbers. You should also have a complete visibility of non-financial number. What is the impact your entity or your organization has on the external world and the society, and whether it's positive or not, and then explain that by way of the integrated reporting to the stakeholders. So that's on protect value. Liberate value is how do you simplify the processes? If you can simplify the processes, you potential of the company. To give you an example, since we were struggling to prepare accounts in good olden days, any which ways we didn't have MIS in process, MIS process in place. Today, almost everything is available on BI tool. We have dashboards available. I get first message in the morning on WhatsApp on the revenue which was achieved on the previous day. Almost everything can be accessed with the help of a mobile or a laptop or iPad, and you can touch, and it's a real-time information. So that is a transition which is expected when you want to support as a chartered accountant or as a CFO on the liberation. And this was acknowledged by CII when they gave us the award, which is what Meherbai mentioned a while back. The third, and probably one of the most important one, is generate value. The first two are basic activities of the CFO, but CFOs are not there just to do compliances or reporting or processes. They have to partner with the business. Business partnership is where CFOs who have a particular way of managing or looking at the business, and the business owners like CXOs or CEOs or the BU head, they can partner and bring growth to the table. And that is what we did at Polycab. We partnered with BCG and embarked on a project by the name of Project Lead. Objective was to get to the better top line, better bottom line, better enablers. And this has unlocked the value. The market cap, which has increased from 8,000 crore to almost 32,000 crore today, is a result of the activities which we had done under this pillar of generate value. The last one and the most important one, according to me, is communicate value. Whatever good work you do, you have to communicate to your internal as well as external stakeholders, including shareholders. You have to communicate in a way, the way the layman would expect you to communicate. All numbers take you to a story, but you should be able to weave that story and communicate. That's the most important thing. And at times, I believe the chartered accountants have this development need of, bringing numbers to a story, weave the story and communicate. But I think if you don't do it, you will not necessarily be adequately rewarded by the street or by the stakeholders. So there's a summary of broad expectation from the CFO as far as a large listed entity is concerned. But I would tend to believe this is broadly true for almost all type of entities. Whether you are a small entity or a medium entity or large listed, this framework is by and large true. But if I move to the right-hand side of my slide, that is where I attempted to compare auditor's role. And in the case of auditor, I would believe that his role would be to certify whatever CFO is doing, certify that value by following the GAS as well as GAAP, and give comfort to the user of the financial statement or user of the annual report. So that's the broad play between CFO and auditor. And this is the transition, which probably I covered a bit, but I will continue to do that as I move ahead in my CFO journey. What I will do in next 5 to 10 minutes is talk about each of these thoughts or questions. The first one to start with is, and I'm expecting the audience members and both physical as well virtual would have questions on similar lines. The first one is, how do you become a successful CFO? Now, there is no perfect recipe for that. It could differ from person to person. But if I were to give you a softer side of it, I think there are 5 C's which are important to ensure that you become a successful CFO. The first one is you should be curious. You should always try to learn more about your business, your processes, the new development which are there on the horizon, whether it's digital or technology, your peers, and so on and so forth. When you are reviewing the numbers of a particular company's financial statement as an auditor, your objective is to ensure GAAP and GAS compliance. Whereas as a CFO, you have to go to the next level, see whether a particular BU is profitable or not, whether a particular SKU is profitable or not, whether there is any scope for improvement on SCM side or not. And those questions are then required to be resolved with the help of your expertise so that business can continue to grow further. So that's on the curious. Second is CFO should be courageous. You should be able to ask difficult questions both internally as well as externally. The CFOs in today's world are not expected to be yes men, particularly when we have risk of non-compliances. So you should have courage to ask difficult questions and challenge the settled principles and see whether you are able to give adequate comfort both to internal as well as external stakeholders so that you are not doing something which is not accepted from you. The link thought here is, at times when you're working a promoted organization or a small organization, you feel like that immediate supervisor is my promoter or my chairman or my board. But that's not necessarily entirely true. You are the CFO of all the shareholders, whether the minority shareholder or majority shareholder. And that is where you have to ensure that whatever you're doing is good both for minority shareholder and majority shareholder, and at times more from minority shareholders' perspective. So you should be courageous. Third is, of course, confident. You should have self-assurance and you should be confident, because if you are confident, then only you can venture into this journey and achieve what you want to achieve. Last is compliance. Where you should know what is expected from you from the law point of view, and law is changing every day. At Polycab, I think we are tracking around 11,300 compliances. And every second there is some amendment on some notification. And you know this already, there is no single source of this amendment. You can probably manage GST, but probably you'll miss on indirect or on direct tax. You'll probably manage direct tax, indirect tax, you'll miss on SEBI. So changes are there. So you should be on top of it on compliances. And the last one is competence. If you should be having domain expertise. So if you're not competent, you can't do it. So just to wrap up my thoughts on CFOs, there are 5 C's which are important. You should be curious, you should be courageous, you should be confident, you should know what is the compliance, and eventually you should have domain expertise and competence. Now, this is good to know, right? The next thought would be, how do you do this? Again, no easy answer there, but I'll probably share my thoughts. One is, I think I should know where I have, better skills than what is expected from me. But at the same time, where are my development needs? And once I have identified my development needs, we should be able to go out of our comfort zone and develop on those. It could mean that you want to experience how the other functions are working. It could mean that experience other geographies, how the business are conducted outside India, outside your organization. Or it could mean going for additional training. But I think that's a prerequisite. Identify where you need to develop and then take corrective action. At times I've seen youngsters, they find it difficult to make investment in themselves. And that is where I believe if you can identify and make investment, that would go a long way to support in your journey towards the CFO position. Second is develop a strategic mindset. As an auditor, my thought process is on risk management, identify the risk, mitigate the risk, or report if I'm not comfortable, whether internally to the board audit committee or externally as part of audit report. But when you move from auditor to CFO, you have to have a strategic mindset. You have to think beyond numbers and reporting. You have to see what I've achieved the last year, what I missed, and what I have to do differently in the years to come, what my competitors are doing. What other industry players are doing, which can be replicated in my industry, and so on and so forth. Third is communicate effectively. communication is the key, particularly when you are working like the CFO. You are like a co-pilot. You are number 2 in the company. And if you can't communicate effectively, it would probably result into some sort of difficulties in execution of your strategy. And this also brings in another angle to it, is to have killing interpersonal skills. How do you persuade? How do you ensure that the change which you want to bring in, or the change which you want to make, everyone in the organization is on the right side of that change? So it takes you to the interpersonal skills. And the last one is compliance and ethics. I don't think we can negotiate or compromise on compliance and ethics. So that is the thing. The another thing is, if you are already a CFO of a small organization and you want to become CFO of a larger organization, or you are already on the path to become a CFO, I think there are 2 or 3 things you should probably do to excel on that journey. One is, don't try to do everything at your individual level. Hire good talent. You are as good as your team or as bad as your team. So don't try to manage everything. If you visualize CFO and if you relate with the previous slide, you are expected to know accounting, taxation, investor relation, compliances, board, and so on and so forth. You, as an individual, you won't be able to manage everything. So continue hiring, invest in good talent. And by investing in good talent means they should be able to manage almost everything independently. You would not be able to cover each of your team members every morning, right? So what you have to ensure is give them right coaching, give them right ecosystem, and then ask them to perform. Of course, you have to give them safety net, but eventually they have to start taking ownership and they have to deliver. The second thing is, if you want to become CFO and you are already on that path in the organization, is remain approachable. At times, when you are attempting to become CXO, at times you are not approachable, right? You are always in one or the other meeting, board meeting, steerco meeting, strategy meeting, and so on. So don't do that. Anyone and everyone should be able to approach you. I think open door policy in few of the companies, or the open culture which they're following, which would help you. Because if you are approachable, that is when your contribution will get noticed. If you're not approachable, even if you are best and you have the best domain expertise, your contribution won't be visible. And the last thing is, be aware that you are being watched. You are number 2 in the organization. You are always on the stage. The way you conduct yourself is being watched. And don't assume that whether in personal capacity or professional capacity, I can take a shortcut. To give you an example, one of my friend jumped a signal, not in Bombay, elsewhere. And he was having a typical Indian conversation with the policeman. His CEO noticed it. And he made a comment the other day that you were doing something like this. Now, think of this from the context of the CFO, a CFO trying to do something which is, or a CFO aspirant trying to do something which is otherwise ethically not acceptable. So you are being watched. Whether someone is actually watching you is not important. The fact is someone can watch you, or probably you are being watched itself is good enough. So don't assume that there is no one in the room and you can do whatever you want to do. So that's on this. I think probably do a good idea to invite comments from the few team members who are here. If you want to ask anything on the first item, happy to explain before I get into second. Please.
How important is to have a support from the management? Because without the support, to do so many things may not be possible in typical promote-driven environment.
Absolutely. So, at times when we think about auditors' risk assessment, and I am on this side of the table now, I also think parallelly as CFO's risk assessment. I think the first step is, when you are thinking about joining a company as a CFO or CFO aspirant, be absolutely comfortable that management is absolutely clean and willing to support you. If you believe that you are not getting the right vibe, please don't proceed. Once you do that, and once you join the organization, please ensure that in first 100 days, you make your own impact. If you miss the first 100 days, it will be very difficult for you to get to that level of credibility. I'll share my own story. As I mentioned a while back. Yeah, sure. Okay. So what Chetan Bhai was trying to understand is, even if you want to do great things, if you don't get management support, how do you ensure you get the management support? And as I alluded, first step is ensure that you are joining the right organization, right set of promoters and the management team. And second is ensure that you have your 100 days plan in place and you have your own impact. To give you an example, and it's not exactly 100 days, more than that, but when I was hired by the existing company, the first mandate was to get the company listed. And it was in the month of July. And you would have noticed by now, I have talked about accounting challenges which we're facing, right? 12 months accounts getting prepared in 12 months. And there were several other internal challenges. But on top of it, all of a sudden in the month of December, we had several issues from the external world. I'm talking about December of 18, when we had issues between India and Pakistan. We had US and China issue. If you recollect, Trump used to have issues with China. And there was a softness in the capital market. In that situation, everyone was of the view, including few of our investment bankers, that ye IPO to nahi hoga. Right. But in those situations, and I'm going back to my initial thoughts of 5 C's, you have to be courageous. There's a lot of ambiguity, but you have to have your own impact. Persuade the team that we'll do it. Even if we fail, we'll attempt. And that is how you can ensure that your domain expertise is recognized by the company or the management. And then for your next initiative or next set of initiative, you get adequate support. And there would be a time when you'll get to autopilot. Management would not ask you anything. They will expect you to do what is expected from you. So that's there. Anyone else who would like to know anything on the first item before I get to the second one?
A couple of questions.
Yes.
One is, what keys the skills CEO would look into a successful?
I think it's a wonderful one. And even today, I think about this. I will not give you a technical answer. I'll give you a practical answer. And my senior colleagues here, and they would be able to relate. In corporate world, the top is very lonely. The CXOs, because when they go and discuss with anyone, generally the expectation is either the CXO is trying to pass on a message, or that individual is trying to pass on a message to the CXO. So top is very lonely. So you as a CFO, you have to have that level of comfort that you can share anything and everything with me. Whether I can give you a solution or not, that's not necessarily important. I can hear you. I can act like a sounding board. According to me, this is one of the most important things. And when you get to that level of rapport, probably you can get into decision making at a totally different level, rather than just becoming an executioner or documenter or preparing a board agenda document. So that's one. Second is accept the reality that you are number 2 in the organization in a way, and you are a co-pilot. So and visualize an aircraft, right? So the pilot is doing almost everything, but you have your own role to play, which indirectly means they have to support the pilot as well. So continue on that. So there could be several things, but if you were to ask me my top two thoughts would be that act like a sounding board to the CEO, and second is assist him in whatever he wants to achieve as part of business by acting and behaving and working like a co-pilot. You had 2 questions. This is first.
Second one was, what kind of challenges did you face to become a successful CFO, and how did you overcome that?
Yeah, very interesting one. That is why I mentioned when I was thinking about this lecture, it was like introspection. So thank you, Abhay, again for giving me this opportunity. See, as an auditor, I excelled on several things. I learned several things, right? So those are positives. But at the same time, when I shifted from this side of the table to this side, I had no option but to unlearn few of those things. So I'll probably talk about what I learned and utilized, or utilizing even today as an auditor, and what I learned. So I think one is technical expertise. That's given. If you don't have domain expertise, you cannot be successful. And as an auditor and later as responsible for relationship, I had a wider view when I was serving my clients, and that technical expertise, both on accounting side of it or consulting side of it, helped. Second is, I think, the ability as an auditor to have both micro and macro view. As an auditor, you can go to the last line item in the revenue GL and ask question and take a macro view and see whether this company's performance is making sense with the peers. I as an auditor, I have that ability. So that helped. Third is, I think as an auditor, all of us are very logical and structured in our thought process, right? So that also helped. And the last thing is, I think, time management and networking. I still remember in Ferguson, we used to fill timesheet, and those days used to be handwritten timesheet. Since those days, I am very cognizant of the fact that my time is very precious. That's the learning which I've done. So there are several positives. But if I come to the things which, and I'll probably give you a couple of examples, as an auditor, I was trained to use checklist or use Caro, for example, and give answers, right? But as CFO, when I'm dealing with media, for example, I need not to go by that format. So if audit checklist wants me to check 30 samples, I will always say I have done 30 samples. But if media is going to ask me something, I need not to answer that. Or probably I can answer something, but then take it to the story which I want to communicate, because I will get only 120 and 180 seconds time on the TV. So, and now my mindset as an auditor is that I have to follow this checklist. There's a gentleman who has 25 years of journalism experience. He's asking me something, I have to answer. But my CFO head will tell me, okay, attend this question in the most acceptable manner, but then please talk about what you want to communicate. So that's one example. The another example is business and process understanding. You as a chartered accountant or as an auditor, you do the process understanding from the risk perspective or from the ICFR perspective. But when you are on this side of a table, you don't do it. You do it from the business perspective. So it's quite possible we jump to a conclusion that this number is immaterial or this line item is immaterial, I'll not do it. But actually it's hard cash as a business. So even if it is few dollars, you would like to save it and fix it. So business and process understanding, the depth is altogether different. The third is business partnership. If I talk about large firms, there is nothing called partnership there in terms of multiple individuals working on a particular project, right? It is a partner who is serving set of clients and all that. So it's that partner and his team generally. And of course, larger partnership for the firm related. But in the business is exactly opposite. You have to partner with the school, with the CEO, with the CMD, with the other function heads and BU heads. And that requires, again, different mindset, because as an auditor, it's quite possible you reach to a conclusion, and my view is I want to qualify whether the audit committee board wants to accept it or not, but that is my view. That is your mindset. Or probably I would expect my auditee also to fall in line. I expect him to take that provision. Please take it. If you don't take it, I'll take it to audit committee. That could be mindset, not always, but that could be my mindset. But in the case of CFO, you can't have that mindset. It's not my way or highway. I have to find ways and means to become a partner in the business development. Yeah, I think that's about it. I can probably go on, but broadly, these are the things. Yes, Javin bhai. Yes.
Specific one, have you had any years or auditors after becoming a CFO?
So
you probably have told that, okay,
so Zubin bhai, I'm
being in my
So Zubin bhai, I know it's a public forum and we're talking about a listed entity, but then also, to the best of my recollection, I don't think I had any instance of disagreement with the auditors. And my impression is auditors get a lot of comfort when they see a chartered accountant who has worked with an audit firm serving like a CFO. Or serving as a CFO, because they know that when he was the auditor, he had the same expectation. So he will not put his friends, and not necessarily friends, his auditors in a spot which is otherwise not acceptable. So touch wood, so far I have not experienced something of that nature. But I'll tell you my thoughts, Zubin bhai, there. I don't think the question is whether auditors would be convinced or not. As a CFO, the first step is whether I am convinced or not. Because auditors, generally speaking, they come into picture when the agreement or the transaction has already been consummated or executed. They come to a stage when the auditee is getting into reporting or accounting or bookkeeping, whereas the CFO is involved from day one, right? From strategy, identification, going through the options, execution, considering the implication, both from the tax, accounting, reporting, governance, and so on and so forth. So those are choices. So to take you back to my previous example on Reg 33, if I were to go back to my auditors and ask them that, quarterly basis per company list to year, what should I do? My impression is my auditor would expect me to do only Reg 33 reporting, which is only a press release. But I, as a CFO, and my team was of the view that we should not go by the mere compliance. You raise the bar and do something which is otherwise acceptable from a large company, and we chose that. So I hope I have answered your question.
One as an independent director who has been an auditor also sometimes face. Maybe many times that may not always be positively looked at by the other board members.
Yeah.
I mean, a person who has, somebody like me who has predominantly had audit experience and also as an independent director who tries to see maybe things from the perspective of an independent director. So similarly, I wanted to know whether you as a CFO also similarly also try to visualize yourself in the shoes of an auditor also. To say that, I mean, I should do things in such a way that there should be no queries and no disputes with the auditors. So that is, I think, acts as an advantage, if I may add that way.
Absolutely. And in fact, role of the independent directors in large listed companies and unlisted companies, if they are on the board, is also very important, because you as a CFO, you can go back to your independent directors, seek for guidance and advice. And invariably, independent directors sit on several boards, so they have wider perspective available. At times they can be pragmatic in their approach, but they can certainly add to your thought process. So that's a great advantage, great example there. So quickly coming back to, if there are any additional questions, I can take a pause. Otherwise, I can come back to this. Yeah. So quickly coming back to the slide, I think I've covered the first two parts already. I think on the successful auditor, I would probably say that technical expertise is the most important. If you don't have gap and gas expertise, if I became chartered accountants 20 years back, and I believe that I will continue with my Indian gap, and I don't want to invest time in India, I don't think that's acceptable. Or I became chartered accountant 5 years back, and I believe that I don't want to learn about digital data, technology, or digital tools. I don't think that's acceptable. So expertise is given. Second is risk mitigation, which is important. And third thing I think is important both for CFOs as well as auditors is networking. I think the events like these are important. If you don't have good network, you will find it difficult to become a good, successful auditor. Key learnings as auditor probably have covered. The second last one, CFO auditor, which is better for me. I think this is very individual choice. What if I were to give you my point of view? I think what we should do is assess your own balance sheet, whether your skill set is better suited for audit or for industry, and whether I have the right inclination. So auditors, you can visualize there is a particular way of working. If you can relate as a young chartered accountant with that working style, where that risk and reward, of course, you should go there. But if you believe that this side of the table where I have industry expertise and all that, if you are able to relate with that, go for that. I don't think there is one answer which can be used as a template for everyone. But I think the starting point would be to assess your own skill set and your inclination. And what should I do if I am an auditor and want to become a CFO? I think by and large, I've covered it. I think 5 C's and my own assessment. I think last thing which I would like to add here is to have a very good mentor. I, as a young chartered accountant, I'm assuming that most of our friends who have joined virtually are young chartered accountants with 5, 6, 7 years of experience. If you are from that community or age bracket or experience bracket, my request would be have a mentor. And not necessarily you have to have only one mentor, you can have multiple, but always try to learn from someone who has fair amount of depth and experience. So that's on the Q&A which I wanted to cover. I'll probably now open the forum for additional Q&A, both physically as well as virtually, whoever joined.
I think one question which everybody wants to know from is, how did you reduce the time of preparation of accounts from 12 months to 15 days? Do you have some magical wand or something with you? Or what was the strategy behind it?
I think there are only 2 things which are required. One is process re-engineering and use of technology. I realized that we were doing in few of the processes exactly what ERP was doing. But we were continuing with good older practices. Bill Gates' best gift to the mankind, Excel is what we were using, which was otherwise not required. Second is, I was fortunate enough, and both as auditor as well as CFO, is to have a great crack team. So the team and few of us used to slog 20 hours a day. And I'm not saying that's a benchmark, you should not do that. But the fact is, few of us were willing to spend additional time late in the evening, late in the night, to streamline the process, and which has helped us. So I think two things: go back, revisit your processes, bring tech into the picture, bring digital into picture. And second is have the best team in place. I think I firmly believe you are as good as your team and you're as bad as your team. So, it could sound like that whatever I have talked about is what I have achieved individually, but very frankly, I am only a part of the team. Whatever has been achieved in last few years, both as auditor as well as CFO, is just because of the great team, which I was blessed to have.
Another question, do you still use checklist?
Yes. The larger CFO function has no option but to use checklist. I mentioned a while back, there are thousands of compliances which we need to comply with. And all of these things, even, eventually we have to take it to the board, and board has to be comfortable. And same is true with the auditors, because as part of their ICFR reporting, they expect us to have the checklist. So there's there. But, since I'm fortunate enough to have a great team, I don't personally use the checklist, but I have a slightly funny habit. I keep a notepad with me, and I keep notes, and I continue to take notes. And I'm an early riser, so I start my day pretty early. So first 2-3 hours are like those types of hours when my team members start getting emails from me or notes from me, or probably I jot down the notes and then give them first thing that day. So that is how I track it. I don't personally use a checklist, but of course the larger team, they do that. And a few of our team members have reached to the stage where they come to my sign off only when they have completed a checklist, but not everyone. Yes, again, a journey. A few of us are still learning.
Another question, when you actually decided to move from an auditor, so you were doing a wonderful job, you were placed with one of the largest CA firms. What came to your mind to go to an entity which was earlier promoter driven, less structured, won't have much controls because it is driven that way earlier? So what made you move?
Again, a great one. And this is what I was thinking away by, that if I'm asked what I'm going to talk about, but then I thought I should talk about what I felt when I took that decision. So one is, at that particular point in time, I felt that I don't have enough opportunities left in that organization. And I love that organization. That's my DNA, to learn and grow. I felt that there is a particular path which is available. Think of it, and most of you work in large audit firms, so you would be able to relate. Think of it like this, that you are one of the partner there, right? When I was thinking about this role, practically you are one of the key decision maker. So that is one thing. The second thing is, I genuinely felt that this company can do wonders. I knew the promoter since last 10 years, and the quantum of work they have done, both in India, overseas, whether on the manufacturing side or social side, this company could be GE of tomorrow. If we continue to do that. So I was genuinely very convinced about the promoters' integrity, their thought process, what they have done. And this company is 50 years old. The legal entity is 25 years old. The business is 50 years old. So when Chetan Bhai was talking about, how do you ensure that you do what is expected from you, is the first thing is you ensure that the promoters are the best, or the management team is the best. And I had that great comfort and rapport that I'm going to join the organization which has the best of the promoter and the management team. And that was the second reason why I chose to do this.
Yeah, one question, Gandharv, is that in this challenging time of COVID, how did you maneuver the company?
I think first phase now, though on paper we have everything, business continuity plan and all that. First phase, we faced a lot of difficulty. All of a sudden, we realized that our channel partners were of the view that they want to retain the cash. Cash in the sense, the payments which were due to us, and rightly so. because the way we were thinking of conserving cash, they were also thinking of conserving cash. Then we had several SCM or supply chain related issues. And slowly and gradually, we realized that it's not only SCM, it's people issues. There's someone who is getting hospitalized. There's someone who needs oxygen. There's someone whose relative is finding it difficult to get hospital. So every second day or probably after every few hours, our priorities were different. And then we realized that we have to have a crack team. And all of us, and there are 4 or 5 of us in the organization who play these types of roles. All of us then started working on several work streams. One work stream was to ensure that we can optimize the cash flows, both on the incoming cash flows as well as outgoing cash flows. Second is form a team to help the employees, and so on and so forth. But after the wave 1 experience, when we got to wave 2 and wave 3, we were better prepared. We didn't face any of those issues which we faced in wave 1. The another good opportunity or only good thing which we got out of COVID was penetration of tech. We started utilizing technology like anything. And of course, this hybrid today is given, but you can relate the company which was struggling to publish the financial statement, the penetration of technology was not up to the mark, right? So all of us are done what CFO couldn't do it, CIO couldn't do it, CEO couldn't do it, COVID did, and we started using technology. So of course, we got better opportunities after COVID, but I think first wave was really, really difficult.
I think some of the young guys, subsequent teams experience online wants to know that after your experience, what do you think, what are the skill sets which as an auditor you should further develop to become a good CFO?
I think I'll probably take you back to my 5 C's, which I mentioned a while back. And I'm sure you would have taken a note of it. It is, you should be curious. You should have fair amount of courage. You should be self-aware and confident. You should know what is compliance and non-compliance. And you should have, of course, domain expertise and competence. But having said that, I think you as a person, you should have your own balance sheet drawn up. You should know what are my positives and what are my development needs. Identify a mentor, invest in yourself and work on that. Then let's come to the next stage. If you're an auditor and you want to get to a company or you want to become a CFO, I think there are 3 approaches or 3 routes available to get into the company. One is which is called staircase approach. You join the organization at the entry level and slowly and gradually you go up in the ladder. My expectation or my impression is that current generation not necessarily would like to take that route. But the second one is elevator, but it is not so easy. For elevator, you have to come out of your comfort zone, go for different experiences, move away from this organization to another organization, move from this function expertise to another function expertise, move from this geography to another geography. And third one, if you are really blessed, is helicopter approach. You are already a great auditor, and you believe that you can directly get to a CFO position, which has happened in few of the cases already. And I've seen both ways, CFO or deputy CFO becoming auditor or auditor becoming CFO. And I know a couple of cases personally as well that happened. But I think these are 3 routes available. If you are 5, 6, 7 year old as far as CFO profession is concerned, my suggestion would be do your own balance sheet and see if you can take the route 2, which is elevator approach. Ji Vijay bhai.
So excellent, Gandharv. Very, listening. It's a hypothetical question I want to ask. In hindsight, would you have said that, since you are a successful CFO, how much credit of this would you give it to being a successful auditor? So it's a hypothetical question.
Yeah.
So I'm just...
No, absolutely. That is a great one. I believe the core expertise which I developed is because I was an auditor, so the technical expertise or the logical approach or trying to understand micro and macro picture or time management or networking. I think the core, whatever I've developed over the period is because I worked on several audits in several types of companies in several sectors of different sizes. And I had opportunity to work with 4 large Big Four firms. So these MNCs also have their own style of working, and that adds to their thought process. But having said that, I think that was not good enough. The expectation from the CFO is beyond accountant or a reporting person. So as I mentioned a while back, you have to have a business partnership. This requires a totally different mindset. And I alluded to a while back, if I were to continue with my approach of auditor, I would probably answer something what media wants to hear, right? Whereas I, as investor relation or spoke of the company, I have to probably talk about what I want to highlight. So that is where I have to rejig my mindset. It doesn't happen overnight, but you have to be cognizant of the fact that your ask or ask from you as CFO is different from auditor. As long as you are able to differentiate the two and you are able to appreciate the two, I think it's good. But to answer your question, I think core is because I was fortunate to work with large firms. Sure.
You become from an auditor to CFO. Now, what would you think from CFO to CEO? What quality would be the?
So, Meerbai, first of all, I think I believe not all the CFOs should attempt to become CEOs. There's no end to it. I don't think you should get into that mindset that if I am a CXO, whether I'm a CHRO or CIO or whatever, CBO, I should become this thing. So one is. The second thing is, again, what is true for 7-year experienced chartered accountant is also true for that CFO. CFO should know what is his skill set. Can he manage the business the way CEO is expected to manage? Because if you take a step back, CEO is the person who is actually taking business decisions. CFO is partnering with him, assisting him, helping him. But the decision is being taken by the CEO. Do you have ability to take those decisions? And these are real life large examples, right? Then you have what is at stake. If you are a CEO of a large listed company, there is some small investor who is probably getting only 10,000 rupees per month. He has invested one share in your company. You take wrong decision. That person's net worth would be a challenge or a question mark. So are you confident or are you super confident that minority shareholders' interest you would be able to cover? If the answer is yes, you should venture into that path. And of course, you have to do more of business and less of CFO this thing. It's a great transition. There are many success stories and a couple of my known persons and mentors have taken that route. But I believe the first step is you have to assess your own balance sheet, your skill set, whether you are up for CEO or not. Otherwise, you can continue as CFO. There's no harm.
One more question, Gandharv, is that you were auditor earlier. So how was your day then? How was your day now? And from late night to sleepless nights?
So what I'm going to talk about is which is not a yardstick. I don't think you should get guided by this. But what I have learned over the period, that also I'll talk about. So when, as I mentioned, I joined Ferguson, and a couple of my great friends who are still in touch with me, and I used to have a client just opposite Churchgate station. And in those days, I used to, I think, stay in Borivali or Dahisar. I was from Jaipur, so that is where I got the accommodation. So I used to take the first train from there. I used to come to Borivali because getting into a train from Dahisar was almost impossible. And I believe today also is impossible. And I used to take the last train. I still remember there used to be a train of 12:54 in the night. Every day, me and my friend and my great friend, he's a partner in one of the large firms. We used to do that. And I probably did that for 28 days after a month, out of a month, I did that for, so that is what, and probably, what Vijay Bhai was trying to understand, I gained because of whatever time I invested in those days. Over the period, I realized that work-life balance is important. Of course, personally to you as an individual, you get other responsibilities, you get married, you have other, expectations, you have your in-laws, your parents and everything. But I think the larger thing is, if you continue to slog, you are indirectly passing on the message to the team members that expectation from you is that you also please take 12:54 a.m. last local, which is the biggest learning. So when I moved to Polycab, the principle, and by and large have been able to follow that, is I leave at 5 p.m. irrespective of what happens. But my team knows that I'm working. by and large, I attend emails within 2 to 3 minutes. Whether it's 12 in the midnight or 5 o'clock, because it's a large organization. If you are not giving approval, there's something which has gone wrong. And if you're not getting approval, then it will have some business implications, someone will stop. So, but the fact is you should not remain in the office because indirectly you're passing on the message. And at the same time, explain to the team that if you're writing an email at 5 o'clock in the morning, expectation is not that you have to attend at 5 o'clock. You attend whenever you want to attend. But work-life balance is important. I am not disputing that, but it is your personal choice. If you decide to slog or if you decide to invest more time in your office activities, please don't expect that your team members and colleagues would also do the same thing. Let them have their own independent decision. We are almost 7:30. Any other thing which you want to cover? Otherwise, I have pretty much covered what I wanted to cover. Okay, thank you very much. Yes, please, Meerbai. I am looking forward to 75th year of BCAs under your leadership, Meerbai, and I'm sure I'll continue to get opportunity to interact with you and the larger team.
One thing, that though 9 months, and 9 months is always a pain, but at the end of that pain, you gain something which is extraordinary. That's what this lecture has delivered to us. And I will frankly admit that this was, I started my journey for the presidency with the first lecture meeting, which is from my field of auditing with K.R. Ramesh. And I'm ending my term with the last lecture meeting, which is again from audit fraternity, though now CFO, and you are addressing that. So it has been a wonderful journey for me too. And the way you have taken us through your journey, I think it has been an inspirational talk, which will open the mindset of many youngsters to look at the things in the right perspective, be as an auditor or be as a CFO. There are no shortcuts. But if there is a hard way, if you learn, and if you put in full efforts, I think success is always of a person who is putting in the hard. It was a very well-deserved vote of thanks. Once again.
Thank you, Gandharv. I think a wonderful session to get an insight on what's on the auditor side and what's on the CFO side. I think your compatibility with BCS, helped you as well as us today, where you could courageously share all your nuances of movement from auditor to CFO. And I think I should appreciate, and we all should appreciate that with the honesty, clarity, and the content you gave today. I think a lot of youngsters, as well as people who want to move from audit fraternity to CFO, would have got some insights and would have taken that back along with them. So thank you for that. Thanks for sharing all of this with us. And before I end, I'll just announce the events for the day for BCA. So just for the participants, we have the 11th residential study course on Ind AS, which is starting on 24th of June at Deltin, Daman. Various speakers for 2 days, 2 nights, 3 days by the Accounting and Auditing Committee. So please take advantage of that. There is a session on data cloud and network securities, best practices planned on 2nd July by the Technology Initiative Committee. It's a half-day workshop. Then 26th ITF International Tax Conference, which is there from 4th August to 7th of August. Then we have Leadership Power of Attraction, a leadership workshop by Human Resource Committee. Then we have the 74th Founding Day on 6th of July, as every year. This time we have a speaker, which is N. Chandrasekharan from Tata. He's going to be speaking on future trend, risk and opportunities. And then we have a students program, which is Tarang, on 25th of July. at KC College. So we would request all the members to take the most benefit of all the programs. With this, I would request all the participants online and offline to give a round of applause to our today's speaker, Gandharv. Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, what? Half frame. Yeah.